You ever look at history, or maybe even just the news, and think to yourself, how? How could normal, everyday people like us, get behind something that's just so awful? It's a really tough question to even ask, but we have to. So today, let's get into it. Let's explore the powerful and often hidden forces that can lead good people down a very dark path. First things first, we've got to get one thing straight. This isn't a story about a few bad apples or monsters hiding in plain sight. No, this is about something we're calling the ordinary person's paradox. It's about how intense, overwhelming pressure can change the game entirely for otherwise good people.
So this is the core puzzle we're trying to piece together. When things get really bad, I'm talking about war, a total economic collapse, you name it, something strange and disturbing can happen. People who you'd never expect, people who would normally be horrified by violence, can suddenly start to support it. So the question is, how on earth does that switch get flipped? Well, as you can probably guess, it's not that simple. It isn't just one single switch. The reality is, it's more like this powerful, dangerous cocktail of different forces, psychological ones, social ones, all hitting at the exact same time. So let's break down what's actually in that cocktail. To start, we have to look inward. We've got to understand what happens inside our own heads when we feel like we're backed into a corner. This is where our own moral compass can start to go haywire. It really all kicks off with fear. I mean, primal fear. When you genuinely believe your safety or your family's safety is on the line, your brain just shifts gears. It goes into pure survival mode. And when you're in that mode, you don't have time for nuance or complicated plans. You crave something simple, something fast. And tragically, that's when violence can start to look less like aggression and more like self-defense. Now, for violence to really become an option, our minds kind of need a permission slip. And that often comes in the form of dehumanization. Through propaganda, rumors, and rhetoric, another group of people can be painted as something less than human. They get called monsters or vermin or a disease. And once you cross that line, once you stop seeing another person as a person, it becomes terrifyingly easy to justify harming them. On top of that, we build up these other layers of what you could call psychological armor. One is moral disengagement. That's when we tell ourselves, yeah, this is bad, but it's for a noble cause, for our country, for our freedom. Then there's the diffusion of responsibility. That's the feeling you get in a crowd. You start thinking, hey, everyone else is doing it, so it can't just be my fault, right? That personal accountability just dissolves. So that's what's going on inside our heads. But that's only half the story. Now we need to look at how all those internal feelings get cranked up to 11 by pressure from the outside world. This is where the sheer power of the group really takes over. See, a crisis just supercharges our basic human instinct to form tribes. Suddenly, loyalty to your in-group is everything. You have to conform, you have to be part of the team. And at the same time, the out-group gets framed not just as being different, but as a direct threat to your very survival. This intense us versus them mindset basically gives people social permission to support things they know deep down are wrong. And you can't talk about group pressure without talking about authority. This is huge. Think about this quote right here. When a leader, a president, a general, anyone with that official stamp of approval says this is what we're doing, it can just silence our personal doubts. That official sanction can turn private hesitation into public action. You know, mass violence rarely ever starts with a roar. It usually begins as a whisper. A few small things happen here and there. Rumors and fears start to spread like wildfire. And then, and this is the critical part, people see their own neighbors getting involved, and suddenly the behavior starts to seem normal. It even feels expected. It's like a social virus, and it just spreads and escalates until it's everywhere. But it's not just about being scared or pressured. For something this big to really take hold, people also have to feel like it's the right thing to do. It needs a justification, some kind of logic that makes it all make sense. And this is where ideology and propaganda become so incredibly powerful. They can completely reframe what's happening. An unprovoked attack is suddenly spun as self-defense. Unspeakable cruelty is presented as a righteous duty to protect your way of life. Propaganda is the engine that drives this entire moral flip. And what makes this so incredibly powerful is that it's often a mix of these big, noble-sounding ideas and some very real practical needs. So you might truly believe you're defending your country, while also knowing that going along with it might get you better access to food, or raise your social status, or simply keep your own family safe. When you mix those two things together, it's an incredibly potent combination. Okay, so understanding all of these dark, complicated mechanisms isn't just some morbid history lesson. No way. It is the absolute first step toward figuring out how to stop this stuff from happening again. So, how do we break this vicious cycle?
So let's just quickly recap the four main drivers we've talked about. You've got our basic psychological survival instincts kicking in. Then you've got the social pressure from our groups that gets guided and legitimized by authority and ideology. And finally, it's often locked in by very real practical incentives. It's a perfect storm. And that means any real solution has to tackle all four of those things. We can build resilience. We do it by fighting propaganda with accurate information, by actively building trust and bridges between different communities, by making sure our institutions, like our courts and government, are fair for everyone. And maybe most important of all, by fostering the kind of empathy that makes dehumanizing someone else completely impossible.
So, I'll leave you with this one question to think about. In a real crisis, when fear is through the roof and nobody knows what's coming next, what truly makes an idea believable? Is it the facts? Is it who's saying it? Or is it just the story that we desperately, desperately need to hear?